Hi everyone, this is Laura with Lonely Pines Farm, and today we're talking about the 9 flower bulbs that you can plant right now in fall to make sure that you have a beautiful flower garden come spring. Right now I'm actually working on that very same task. In this bed here we have some saffron bulbs that have been living here for a couple years now, and we get blooms off of them each year, and I get to pick the, don't quote me on this, it's like the little stigma, I don't know. Part of the center pollen part of the flower is what saffron is, and it comes from a crocus bulb. Typically those kinds of crocus bulbs bloom in spring. This one is unique in the fact that it blooms in fall, so that is a reminder too. Now is the time to pick up your saffron bulbs. They're typically planted like late September, and they'll bloom about 6 weeks later. So today I am transferring these, I don't know, 10 or so saffron bulbs, and then we got a shipment of 50 more saffron bulbs because I need a bigger supply. So very excited. So I think I've blabbed on long enough about saffron. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm obsessed, but it's okay. So let's get on to the other bulbs that you can be planting in your garden right now. It's actually a perfect transition because number 1 on the list is crocuses. It is the earliest blooming spring bulb. And you would be planting those right now. Like I mentioned, most crocuses do actually bloom in early spring. Look at that. Yeah, so these are already starting to root and grow a little bit. Ideally, I would have transplanted them a couple weeks ago, but you know, I don't know. Isn't there always such a long to-do list in the garden? Number 2 on the list, and I am kind of trying to do these in the order in which they will bloom in your garden come spring. So next on the list would be snowdrops. We don't actually grow these personally, but I would love to add them to the garden. From what I understand, they are teeny tiny, and they've got kind of a drooping Snow White featured flower. So absolutely gorgeous. You can plant those right now as well. The next one would be muscari. So the only one that comes to mind that I know of is called Grape Hyacinth. It's not technically a hyacinth, it's a muscari, but again, very short. I've seen recipes before of making grape lemonade using grape hyacinth as kind of like a foraging thing. Doesn't that sound delicious? But you can plant those now as well, along with regular hyacinths. So the full-blown, they're like this tall, about half of them is just a big thick tube of flowers. They smell incredible. I'm trying to be so delicate here. I don't want to ruin these bulbs, and some of them are starting to root a little bit. Beautiful thing about saffron is that you actually don't water it. It goes dormant over the hottest months of the year, like July, August, and that's actually when you don't need to water it. So it's one less thing to have to worry about in the garden. And I love that it blooms when most of the summer garden is fading away. So next on the list are 2 classics that everybody already knows about, I feel like, for spring bulbs, is your tulips and your daffodils. Those both get planted in fall, they overwinter, and then they pop up kind of mid-spring. So now would be the time for your daffodils and your tulips. After that is a really fun flower that I am dying to add to the yard called Frittlearia. It's just fun to say. To me it kind of looks like a tulip, but it hunches over in a bell shape, and the ones I've seen most frequently actually have checkered petals. It looks so cool. It looks so unlike any other flower. I would definitely love to add Frittlearia to the garden. Right now you can also be planting your decorative alliums. Last year we added some drumstick alliums to the yard, and they ended up being way prettier than we ever could have imagined. It's on our to-do list to add more, but we just, not in the cards this year, but you can plant other decorative alliums right now. And last on the list would be lilies. They do bloom a little bit later, like almost spring into summer, but you can plant them in fall. Ideally, you'd plant them about 6 weeks before your last frost date, so they have time to develop roots before it freezes. So it might be a little bit late on those, but if you miss the boat, you can still plant them in early spring. All these flowers you can plant kind of up until the ground freezes, like with the lilies. It's generally a good idea to get it done in like September, early October, earlier the better. If you order bulbs online, generally they ship them to you when it's time to plant. And if you went to a big box store right now, I know for a fact that they've got all of their tulip and daffodil bulbs out along with hyacinth and a bunch of other fun stuff. So now's the time to pick up those flower bulbs, get them planted so you don't miss the boat. Believe me, you're going to want the color come early spring. Thanks so much, everyone, and happy growing!